going to take a look at the geography skills and tools that we've learned so far in Chapter 1. We're going to see what you think about those skills and tools. Brings us to the What Do You Think section in our textbook, located on page 34 and 35. Our lesson today and our discussion today is all going to be about answering this question. Are street mapping technologies an invasion of people's privacy? Are there things out there technology-wise, geospatial technology-wise, the technologies that have mapped the entire Earth, are those invading my privacy, my ability to live without everybody else knowing information about myself? Well, to better understand those street mapping technologies, let's quickly review what we learned in the previous lesson. If I quiz you right now, would you know what GPS and GIS stand for in terms of geospatial technologies? Well, if not, we're going to take a look. If so, you're going to see some of those technologies that are available to you and the public to use. And then, once you've got an understanding of what those are, you might be better able to answer this question. Do those give away too much information to other people? Are they invading your privacy? By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to answer that question with your own opinion based on what we've learned so far. Let's quickly review the geospatial technologies that we talked about in Lesson 2. The first of those that I asked if you knew the answer to, a GPS, stands for Global Positioning System. This global positioning system is a system of three different elements. The first is the satellites that orbit around the Earth. Those satellites send out radio signals so they can kind of map the entire surface of the Earth. Those signals can reach almost any point on Earth. The second is a control system to keep those things organized, orbiting in the right way. And the third part of that system is the actual device that's used to triangulate a location. So those signals go from the device to those satellites to tell you where you are located on the Earth. People use this all the time, a lot of times for directions. There used to be GPS devices that would go in your car. Now they're actually built into the car as a navigation system. And you can most popularly find a GPS actually on your phone if you're trying to get directions through applications like Google Maps or some type of mapping service. The second one that I asked you about, a GIS, or a Geographic Information System, is another important geospatial technology that organizes geographic information. It's not just a positioning system, but it takes into account the information on the Earth's surface and organizes it in a specific way. I want to show you an example of a couple of those so you can be more familiar with the ability to answer this question. Are these technologies an invasion of privacy? The first one that we're going to look at is a GIS system, so a Geographic Information System. One example of that might be Google Earth. If you go to Google Earth and you click Launch Earth, it'll actually launch this on your computer so that you can see the entire globe. And now through this entire globe, I can go over here and I can actually use some of these tools to plan or play with and learn about what this world has to offer. So I can search, I can click this Voyage button, which is actually going to take me on a trip to different locations. I can change the different types of map styles. Again, here's my search, Voyage. If I'm feeling lucky, I click on this and it takes me to a random part of the Earth. We might do that in just a minute. Or I can actually find the different types of information that I'm looking for, measure distance and area. So it's giving me information about the world, and Google has taken the time to put together all of this information so it's available to the public. Let's just take a look at how this works. If I search for a specific location, let's say Garden Homes Lutheran School or Church, there we are in Milwaukee, and I click on that place. Take a look. It's going to zoom right into where we're located. There's our country, there's our state, there's our city, and boom, Garden Homes Lutheran. You can even see the crazy amount of detail that Google has gone through to take these pictures, because guess what? Those are actually on our roof. These are the solar panels up there that are providing some of the electricity for our school. Across from our school, you can see Lighthouse Youth Center, and you can see what is a map of the different neighborhoods and all the houses in our area. How cool. Now this might be helpful for somebody who's trying to find a location or to see what a place looks like before they're actually going there. It might be helpful in terms of understanding what the neighborhood looks like, or how to specifically get from one place to another. It's really, really helpful and provides information. Now, it doesn't necessarily give you a position. That's why it's not technically a GPS. It's a GIS, to where I can actually zoom in and find out information on what these things look like. Looks like this picture was taken, and some of it has been digitized, these different trees, even when like the teachers' cars are here working hard at school to provide you with an education. Who knows, when this was taken, maybe you were even at school getting your education. Awesome. Next, let's take a look at another GIS, or Geographic Information System. Here's one from the state of Wisconsin. Here's what Mr. Shane uses to try and find places in which he can go hunting. He doesn't own any property that allows hunting, as in my own private property, because I can't hunt in the city where I live, so I have to find places that are public land. Now, in the state of Wisconsin, people can actually take their land that they have as private property, and if they want to lower their taxes and pay less money to the government, they can get into this system so that their taxes get really, really low. It actually becomes really inexpensive to own land, and you don't have to pay much property tax. Well, to get into this, you actually have to approve people to be able to go onto your land for public use. So you have to open your land to people in the public. And to find those locations, they have mapped that on what would be the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources website. So these are private lands that are open for public recreation. Again, this is a GIS, or a Geographic Information System, because it's providing me information of what places I can go that are actually private land but are publicly owned. You can see the difference between these purple dots that represent what would be a specific type of property, and the red dots that organize information into what would be considered a different type of property. Mr. Shane will take you up to where he's from, just north of the Appleton, Green Bay area. Here's Shawano County, where I do a lot of hunting, but even farther up north into Lang County I have a chance to go. And if I click on one of these different locations with all these indicators, that would show a place where I could actually go hunting. So this is the county forest in this northern part of Wisconsin. You click on this and it's going to provide you information. There's 40 acres here, but there's an additional 13,000 or 14,000 acres of hunting land. That's a huge piece of property that would be available to try out and try and find some deer for hunting season. Now, this is a specific use, specific information, and that's a lot of times what GIS systems offer. We read in our textbook that sometimes they can provide information for farmers, or the soil type, or the plant life, especially when you're keeping track of things that are trying to grow, or the rainforest that's trying to be protected. This might be a really, really helpful way in which that information is being used and communicated. Now, let's take a look at a couple of different mapping services that would be considered probably both a geographic information system and a global positioning system, because you can find the actual specific location. If I go to what would be Google Maps, I could technically use this as a GIS system. Here's Garden Homes again, because I can take this little person, and if I drag him over to the street, see how the streets light up as blue? I can drop him onto that street, and now he's looking at specifically what that place looks like. The Google Earth view was this aerial view. The mapping service actually allows me to put that person right here in front of the building. It just so happens that this picture was taken again when there were a lot of people here working hard for our ministry, for our church, and for our school. And the Google car drives by with this camera that rotates right on the top of it and takes pictures of a 360 view so that you can see this. If you happen to be like this person walking down the street, you happen to be located now on Google forever until this picture is going to be updated. Maybe that's part of the consideration of, is this an invasion of privacy, because you didn't give them permission to take your picture when you were walking down the road. You were just out in public. Now, if you noticed, I can move this around. I can see different locations. If I click on the street, it actually takes me and pulls me to a certain place. Here's the Lighthouse Youth Center. You can see it's a nice, wonderful, beautiful day. And I can go around the building. I can go down the block and look at people's property, or I can look at find a specific address. Okay, here's where I'm going to park. You can find all that information using our mapping service. Now, to get out of what would be the little human street view, you click this button and you can find this specific location. Now, here's where it becomes a global positioning system, in which I want to find my actual location, or maybe even to find directions. With my phone, I can actually locate where I'm at, and then I become this little indicator on the map. That would make it a positioning system, because it's showing you where you are. An information system is simply providing information. So here at school, I know that the closest gas station is right down the road. I know that there's a couple places where you could get food, or where there's a couple restaurants. So you go down to on 27th here, you go down to Capitol, there's boom, McDonald's, Popeyes. You can find this information here. So sometimes the mapping service can be both a positioning system because it can find a specific location and also provide information to some of the commerce that's going on and or specific addresses. Hopefully that helps you to understand what these different pieces of information look like in terms of if it's an invasion of privacy or not. Back on page 34 and 35 in your textbook, the What Do You Think section, or in Chapter 1 in Geography in your online textbook in what would be called the lesson feature, What Do You Think? Click on that feature, it should open a page. Looks very similar to what you see here on the screen. Let's get back to that question. Are street mapping technologies an invasion of people's privacy? Suppose you're curious about a place you've never visited. Instead of going in person, you might be able to get a 360-degree view from your computer. Services like Google Street View and Bing Street Side display panoramic images of public roadways and buildings. The photos are taken by cameras attached to roving vehicles. They capture whatever is happening at the time, which means they sometimes capture random bystanders too. Some people argue that street-level mapping programs violate the right to privacy. They point out that individual pictures can appear on the map website without their knowledge or consent. Do tools like Street View intrude too much on people's privacy? We saw the example in the previous part of the video where one person walking down the street got their picture taken by the Google car. Here's what that Google car looks like. It kind of has on the outside this nice detailed map so you can recognize it, but then the dead giveaway is this camera at the top that is constantly rotating 360 degrees taking pictures of all those things. So if you're driving by the car, it takes a picture of you in your car. If you're on the side of the street, it takes a picture of you, and it didn't ask you for permission to post those things online. Is that an invasion of privacy, or is it something that people shouldn't care about because they're using this technology for the specific reason that they're accessing it? Let's take a look at two of the possible arguments, yes and no, and you can find out where you fit or where you feel what you think about this topic. Yes, our primary source means that it's coming right from a specific person that has a detailed amount of information on the said topic. Privacy encompasses the right to control information disseminated or spread about oneself. Personal behavior disclosures that occur as a result of internet street-level mapping technologies almost certainly violate this personal right to choose which face to display to the world. A person may not mind that their friends and family know of their participation in certain social, stigmatizing, or disapproved of activities. An entirely new issue arises, however, should the entire public suddenly discover that the person is doing something questionable. Internet street-level mapping scenes depart from being simply a record of what members of the public could have seen on the street, because on the internet, images can be and often are saved onto users' hard drives for later dissemination, thus compromising the reputation of these images. Even if removed by Google after the fact, they can be released to the public in an ever-widening wake. This is coming from Andrew Lavoie in his response in the Georgia Law Review, the online zoom lens, why internet street-level mapping technologies demand reconsideration because of the modern-day tort notion of public privacy. So this is a lawyer who's arguing that this breaks your personal right to disclose information to the world. If you're on Instagram, if you're on social media, you take a picture and you send that stuff out, you are giving people permission to see your personal behaviors. In this case, Google's taking your picture, posting it on the internet. You didn't give them permission to show what you were doing, walking down the side of the road, where you were walking, what you were doing while you were out in public when this picture could have been taken of you. There probably are people that are worried about their reputation, or maybe they were doing something they didn't want to be seen doing in those circumstances, to say they would argue that this is an invasion of privacy. I didn't give you permission to use my image to change somebody's impression of me. Interesting argument. Let's take a look at the opposite side. No. Primary source, this is coming from Stephen Chow, the product manager for Google Maps, so from Google himself. At Google, we take privacy very seriously. Street views only feature imagery taken on public property and is not in real time. This imagery is no different from what any person can readily capture or see walking down the street. Imagery of this kind is available in a wide variety of formats for cities all around the world. While the Street View features enables people to easily find, discover, plan activities relevant to a location, we respect the fact that people may not want imagery they feel is objectionable featured on the service. We provide easy, accessible tools for flagging inappropriate or sensitive imagery. Users can report objectionable images, and objectionable imagery includes nudity, certain types of locations. For example, domestic violence shelters are clearly identifiable individuals. We routinely review takedown requests and act quickly to remove objectionable imagery. The argument that Stephen here is making is that Google is your service to provide more information for a specific location, and it's no different than if you were actually at that location learning about it yourself. They just provide the ability for you to see a place before you actually go there. So you know what it looks like, you know where to go, you know where to park, you know how to find these different places if you're going to something that is completely new. They're saying that in the past, this car has driven by and people have recognized this car, and objectionable things have happened to this car. People have made certain types of actions to where they want to either be on the internet or not on the internet, and when people see these things on the actual mapping service, they can notify Google that says, hey, when you drove by this person, they did something really inappropriate. We don't want to see that on the internet. Or when you drove by this person, you really got a good view of this person, and they don't want to disclose their location. They don't want to disclose what would be a clearly identifiable picture. So then Google works to take those things down. Now you can make the argument, is this an invasion of privacy? They don't have your permission, so you could say, yes, I need to give permission for those types of things. Or Google is offering a service. It's based on how you use it to identify if it is invading privacy or not. Your assignment for today is to do some of that thinking with our DBQ, our document-based question. I'm going to provide for you a document to answer these questions, and I'd like you to fill them out in complete sentences. Number 1 says, the skill we're working on is identifying. What types of images does Google consider inappropriate? Maybe you recognize that in that last chapter that talked about objectionable images, and it gave a list of examples for those. Number 2, citing text evidence, going back into the text and finding something that would provide you with a really good answer. What point does Andrew Lavoie make to argue that Street View invades people's privacy? Well, to go to text evidence, we actually go back to the text. Andrew Lavoie was our first example or primary source, the attorney or lawyer from Georgia. Where in he does he specifically say how it invades someone's privacy? And thirdly, our critical thinking, identify the point of view. Describe a situation when Street View could be useful and one when it could embarrass or endanger someone. Do you think the benefits outweigh the privacy concerns? There are 3 parts to this question. Describe a situation when it could be useful. 1 sentence. Describe a situation when it could embarrass or endanger someone. 1 sentence. And then, do you think the benefits outweigh the privacy concerns? As in, do you say yes, it's beneficial, or no, there's too much privacy concern? You're basically answering the first question, what do you think? Are street mapping technologies an invasion of people's privacy? Again, first sentence, describe a situation where it's useful. Second, when it's embarrassing or endangering. And third, answer your yes or no to that initial question with some type of argument. Do you think the benefits outweigh the privacy concerns? God's blessings and good luck.